Hello guys, welcome back to Pause and welcome back to Hysteria Pier. This is part 8 and today we are continuing on with our rides here on the pier. So before we get started, if this is the kind of content you like, then please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, all that good stuff. And let's jump back to the last video. So I asked you guys, what do you think I should do? I put in the mouse blueprint of the new wooden mouse coaster, and I asked you guys, what do you think? Is it worth staying? Shall I make my own? And I kind of left it up to the comments. So overwhelmingly in the comments, you guys decided that I should try and build a coaster myself. So what I've done is I've had a few reference images of a couple of wild mouse coasters around the world. I based this one loosely on the steel varieties rather than the actual wooden versions, because there was no point recreating the one that I just deleted, because that pretty much is an exact recreation of that style of coaster, the one in Blackpool to be exact. So I based this off the wild mouse, generally them sort of spinning ones that you see, the standard layout ones which you get at a lot of fairgrounds and things like that. I've kind of based it on that in terms of this first half, and the second half is kind of my own interpretation of what I think a sort of janky pier roller coaster would have. So I've tried to keep it pretty contained within the footprint that's there already, so this footprint here, and the second half of the ride kind of just meanders underneath with a few bunny hills, a couple of sort of S-bends and that kind of stuff. I've kept the banking very minimal on the corners, purposely, as these kind of coasters didn't have much banking at all. I mean, even in game it doesn't give you that many options for banking. I do go back after having a quick ride through and do make a few of the corners a little bit more banked, just because it was a bit too harsh on some of the corners. But generally it's the layout you're seeing here is the final version that I end up sticking with, and I think it's turned out okay. I wanted to leave enough space at the front for the sign that we spoke about in the last episode, so I do have the big Hysteria Pier wild mouse sign that goes on the front of the coaster, and sort of towards the end of the video you'll see that I come back and do some custom supports for that sign, so it all kind of fits together using the same pieces that hold up the actual coaster, so it all blends quite nicely. So I was just trying to figure out the layout here. You can see it kind of just meanders under itself to just create a kind of well, just the second portion is very much just bunny hills, I'll be honest with you. The main thrill comes from the drops and sort of the start curvy bit, the typical wild mouse section. So I do a little bit of work just to get it back into the station. I do end up having to put a very slight lift hill in, which isn't ideal for this kind of ride, but I mean, it's old, it's not out of the realms of possibility, but yeah, it's not exact to what a real life coaster would be. But I did it, I had a go, and thank you guys ever so much for all the comments, and there were some really nice comments as well from the last video, and a few sort of home truths as well, and a few people who have mentioned that there is quite a fair bit of blueprint in this park, which, yeah, that's fair enough. Most of the buildings on the promenade, well, pretty much all the buildings on the promenade were blueprints, so I take that entirely on board, but from the start that was the plan. I didn't want to spend 20 episodes just making some buildings that you're never going to see. The main part of this build is the prom and the attractions, the pier and the attractions. So the buildings at the back of the promenade were never an important feature, they were just there for a backdrop. It's like that kind of shot just there, it's just the backdrop. So that's the reason why I did use the blueprints, and I was very open from the start saying that's the reason why I'm using them. But a few people did point that out, that we've got a lot of blueprints already in here and we don't need another one with the coaster, and I completely agree. So, and that's the reason why I do ask you guys for your feedback and give me your comments, because it makes me realise that, yeah, I did do a little bit too many blueprints. So this is the coaster I've decided on. I really wanted this kind of like sweeping curve behind the station, which is why we've got the drop there. Sorry if you can hear the dogs in the background. I've got my new puppy and my old dog in the office with me today, so you might hear some fighting going on behind me, but they're just playing, don't worry, ignore them. Anyway, so onto the wild mouse. So this is the sign I was talking about in the last episode. So we put in a sort of wonky wild mouse sign at the front just here, and then I also a little bit later on, well, I think pretty much after this, put in a Hysteria Pier sign just above that. So we use the in-game new font for the Wild Mouse, as you can see, and I've used the basically this classic that now is everywhere on this build for the Hysteria Pier section. I had a little bit of trouble here when I first put this down, as it was kind of adding all these pieces to the actual pier, and I was really struggling to get the letters lined up. So I delete it all, I move over to the beach, and I do it again, and then I bring it in as a separate piece. So yeah, this flooring that I've put down for the pier base is becoming a proper headache, because everything that I put down is automatically attaching to it, so it's becoming a bit of a pain. I've not made my life very easy with this at all, I really haven't. So here we go, we're making the Hysteria Pier sign that goes above the Wild Mouse sign on the edge of the coaster. So I think it's turned out quite nice. There will be a full POV of the ride in the experience video, which will be out just after this one today. So you'll be able to have a quick look at it. And before anybody even rides it, it's not perfect. And like I said, it is not trying to be a real ride. I'm very happy with the first sort of half. I think the start, the lift hill, and the very curvy sort of section before the first drop, I'm really happy with that. That's very much how they are, these kind of style rides, and I think I've got the gradient perfect on it. I'm really happy with that. The second half probably could do with a bit of work, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily finished. I could always go back and change that up. So I'll let you guys have a look in the POV and the experience video, and then let me know if you think it needs tweaking. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. Like I said, I really like the sign. That's exactly what I had in mind in the last episode, and it's come out quite well. This is the bit I was talking about where I've started building the actual structure to the sign, linking to the ride structure itself. I think it just adds a little bit of realism to it. You don't really notice it, to be honest, when you're looking at it from below, but we know it's there, I know it's there, and it makes sense that realistically it would have some kind of support holding this up, because that'd be a heavy sign. It's a big sign, it'd be heavy, and it needs a structure to hold it there. So that's what we do here, we just build that into the side. Now, moving on to the next bit of this pier then. So in the last episode we obviously planned out a lot of the rides. So we planned out, sorry, dogs were fighting him. We planned out a lot of the rides, the locations, the queue lines, all that kind of stuff. And I left two foundations for the Funhouse and the Ghost Train. So if you haven't seen the last episode where we do discuss everything, what we're doing on the pier, do go back and have a look, and it explains a lot about where my mindset is and where we're placing rides and all that kind of stuff. So if you did see it and you've noticed that we've put these two foundations down, after we finish this coaster in a couple of seconds, I move over and we start the facade for the Funhouse. By the end of this video, the facade is pretty much done, the building is pretty much in. I just need to do a little bit more work on the outside of it. Need to put in the queue line and that kind of stuff. So that's something which we will do sort of towards the next episode. And I've just noticed, looking at this footage now, that the colour hasn't gone all the way down on that pier side. It's a bit black underneath, which I didn't notice when I was building it, and that's really annoying. So I will go back and fix that when I go back into the game. So yeah, this is what we're doing now. We're starting work on the Funhouse Facade. So I use these new tin wall pieces, mainly because I don't really see any other place I can use these in this build, because they're quite specific in their use. But I think it lends itself quite well to a funhouse, as it doesn't really need to be a proper building. And like I mentioned before, this is just going to be a facade at the front, back and sides are going to remain a kind of warehouse. I mean, a lot of these fun houses you get in these kind of fairs and piers generally are the kind of travelling versions that you get in fairgrounds. So the ones that are pretty much loaded on the back of a lorry, back of a truck. I'm not going to that level of detail on it by building a truck and all that sort of stuff, because it wouldn't be there. This would be a more permanent feature. But generally that's the size and the look I'm going for. So that's why I've used this kind of basic tin building. The front is pretty much completely themed in terms of its facade. I do a tiny little interior, just this little entrance hallway here. I just wanted to get there a little bit of depth to it by adding a couple of doorways in. It just gives it a nice little entrance plaza. So that's the reason why we've done that. But generally, the next sort of half of this video is going to be putting in the facade for this funhouse. I did have a bit of fun with it, I'll be honest. I mean, I used quite a lot of pieces that I wouldn't ever normally use, and it kind of lends itself to this sort of thing because there are a lot of massive, garish pieces in this game that you struggle to find a good place for, especially if you're trying to make a realistic build, which I am trying to do here. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I am trying to make it relatively realistic to some extent. So I use some of these fantasy windows just because, again, I've never used them, and I think they lend themselves quite well to this kind of building. A lot of vintage pieces on here just to fill it out and make it look a little bit better. We add a bit of height to the roof, so we stick a few bits up there, and we get the sign in a little while as well. So it ends up being quite a high building, but then that kind of fits. I was looking through quite a lot of reference images to try and see what I wanted this to look like. Originally I was going to copy one that I'd found, but then I thought, no, I'm not going to copy, I'll make my own. But a lot of the time, these kind of fun houses, you do get them multi-leveled. So you might find they're 2, 3, even sometimes 4 stories high, and they kind of end with like a slide or something like that. So the fact that it's quite a big building is realistic to the type of attraction that it is, and in the location that it is. So it kind of fits. I think it works, and it's yeah, I ended up being quite happy with it in the end. So this is where I'm sort of making the big garish sign at the top. I think in the end, I can't remember what we go for with the name. Coco's House of Fun. I think we might change that to Bozo's House of Fun a little bit later on. As I'm sort of referencing the fact there's a clown on the front, which Bozo the Clown is quite a common name. Probably too common. I mean, I'm not awful at names, so if anyone can think of a better name for it or anything a bit more exciting, let me know, and I can always rename it. But yeah, Bozo's House of Fun is what we went for, and I quite like the sign. I mean, I've never used these sort of star background pieces before. I don't really know where you would use them, but I think they fit quite well up there. It makes it look very sort of carnival. The colours fit. Yeah, and I think I quite like it. So yeah, we also add a few little bits outside the front of it. I do a little bit of lighting towards the end. I also do a bit of lighting on the coaster as well. So we light that up. I've not gone anything overly special with the lights. I've just gone for kind of white floods. So from a distance, you just sort of see the coaster structure, and that's the feature in itself. Really, is the coaster structure. As it would be a big deal. I mean, let's think back. Say this pier was from the 70s or 80s or something. That kind of coaster would be a big deal back then. It's a big ride, and for a small pier like this to have that on there, they would make a big song and dance and a big feature out of it. So that's what we've done. We've lit it up nicely, and it works out quite good in the end. I had a few little pieces to the roof. Those cannons, again, I don't know where else you would use them. I don't think they really fit. Originally I was going to have them turned on, but then I thought that's not very realistic. You wouldn't have cannons and confetti dropping down all the time. So in the end we're just leaving there as a bit of theming. We do add some other stuff to it. Sorry, my dog's just running into my computer, and I don't want that to happen. Don't want any crashes. Yeah, so we added some circus tents and all that kind of stuff up there. I use a few of these sweet pieces, these candy pieces, which again I've never really used. I never have a use for them. So if any build's going to need them, it's this one. A few of the flags, again, I don't really ever use those. And like I say, these circus tents at the top, just to give it a bit of a height variant. You don't see it as much from ground level, but it does give it just a little bit of interest, and you can see the peaks sort of poking out. And I think it turns out quite well, to be honest. I mean, for a simple facade, I think it's okay. I did kind of mention in the last one, I'm not going to build the interior of this fun house. It'd take ages, and there'd be no point. No one would ever see it. Guests wouldn't go in there. It would be a waste of time. So I don't expect there to be any interior done on this other than that little doorway at the front. That's all I'm doing. This is just a facade for this funhouse. So apologies if you are disappointed and you want me to see me do a whole indoor build. It's not happening. However, the ghost train will be a full dark ride. So I'm going to use an actual track ride for that one. There'll be a full outdoor ghost train facade, and I will do an interior as that. And it'll be a tiny little dark ride. Just a very classic ghost train like you get in these kind of fairs and these kind of areas where it's just very, very sort of tacky, very sort of loud noises, lights will come on, show a face, and yeah, you know, the tacky fun houses you get. So that's what we are going to do, and that's what I'll start in the next episode. We'll get cracking on with that, and then we'll also get started with putting in some of the queue lines and the fences, and also some of the little buildings. Like we need to get the shops in, the ticket booth still needs theming up, and I need to get some just random little bits of theming on here to make it look like an actual pier. I still want to have your guys' input on what to do at the back of the pier. So do I put in that pub? Do I put in a restaurant? Do I put in that bandstand? I don't know. I'm a bit limited on space, but I can always make the pier a different size. I can always add to it. It's not like we're stuck in the size we've made. So we're only stuck with our own imagination. So do let me know if you can think of any ideas. The general plan that I'm thinking about is I'm going to build the building of the pub to the right hand side of the Wild Mouse, with a little courtyard overlooking the sea and the coaster at the back. It would just be a little outdoor seating area, a few tables and chairs, fenced off, just where you can look out to the sea and watch the coaster. That's my general idea, but if you can think of anything better, do let me know, and I'm open to suggestions. So generally guys, that is about it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed this look, and thank you ever so much again for all your comments about the coaster. You were all right, you were perfectly spot on about me making it, and I'm very happy that I did, so thank you for that push to do that basically. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And don't forget to watch the experience video that is out in a couple of minutes after this one to have a look at a POV of the ride and a closer look at all the stuff we've done today. Cheers guys, see you next time, bye.